The kidnapping of nearly 300 schoolgirls in Nigeria has shined a spotlight on the terror group behind the abductions. Critics say the U.S. was too slow in labeling Boko Haram a terrorist organization. Some are pointing the finger directly at the then Secretary of State, Hillary Clinton. Republican Congressman Peter King of New York is joining us right now. He's a member of the House Intelligence Committee. Congressman, thanks very much for coming in.
Thank you, Wolf.
Would it practically have made any difference if the U.S. a couple of years earlier had formally declared Boko Haram a terrorist organization? Would that have prevented this group from kidnapping those nearly 300 girls?
Wolf, I believe it would have had to have helped. Now, whether it would have prevented it or not, we don't know, but it certainly would have been a step in the right direction. And I want to make it clear, this isn't just me or Republicans saying this. Within the administration, the Eric Holder Justice Department was pushing as far back as 2012. Lisa Monaco, who was the head of the counterterrorism unit, to have Boko Haram labeled a foreign terrorist organization. The CIA wanted it, the FBI wanted it, and there were even people within the administration who wanted it, but for whatever reason, the State Department decided not to. Now, I actually have heard a number of the reasons they've given, and I just don't think in the post-9/11 world that those reasons have much credibility.
I know the Assistant Secretary of State for African Affairs was opposed at the time to making this designation, Boko Haram, a terrorist organization. Do you have evidence, though, that it went all the way up to the Secretary of State, Hillary Clinton?
No, I would just assume that a matter of this importance would go to the Secretary of State, and I have a great personal regard, actually, for Secretary Clinton. I saw her yesterday at the 9/11 Memorial Museum, but I think, again, she was the Secretary of State during this period, so if she gets credit for what went right, I would say, in my belief, this went wrong, so as Secretary of State, she has responsibility. I'm not making accusations against her. I'm just saying that in her time as Secretary of State, the State Department, and Johnny Carson was the Assistant Secretary of State, he was against the designation of Boko Haram as a foreign terrorist organization. I think that was a mistake, and I think the fact that when John Kerry became the Secretary of State in November of, in November 2013, he did designate Boko Haram as a foreign terrorist organization. And also I would point out, I believe that Mr. Carson was gone from the State Department by that time.
And so obviously, when you look back, and I've read the letters that you and others, including Democrats, wrote to the State Department. I read the letter that Lisa Monaco, when she was Assistant Attorney General, she's now the President's top national security advisor on counterterrorism and Homeland Security, the letter she wrote, the CIA. So everybody in the government, except at the State Department, wanted to designate Boko Haram a formal terrorist organization. What was the main argument the State Department was giving you at the time why they didn't want to do that?
Yeah. First of all, Wolf, you're right as far as these letters. I've sent 2 letters. Congressman Pat Meehan of Pennsylvania, who's Republican, he was on those letters. And also on one of those letters, at least, was Jackie Speier, who was a congresswoman from, a Democratic congresswoman from California. We felt very strongly about this. Now, as the reasons they gave, they felt it would give too much publicity. The State Department thought this would give too much publicity to Boko Haram. And they also felt that they couldn't trust the Nigerian government. Well, again, in the post-9/11 world, we don't always have perfect allies, and the Nigerian government is obviously not a very effective government, but by us designating them as a Boko Haram as a foreign terrorist organization, we could have taken measures as far as funding, and also it's up to the State Department in those cases to work with the Nigerian government. And also I think they said the Nigerian government didn't want this designation made. Well, we can't allow Nigeria to be determining our foreign policy because, as Lisa Monaco pointed out in her letter, and again, she was Eric Holder's Deputy Attorney General, that this was a potential threat to the United States, and this was a potential threat to American interests in Africa. As far as Boko Haram, as far as giving them notoriety, they already had, unfortunately, tremendous notoriety in Africa. They carried out massacres. They killed people, murdered, I don't know how many people in a Christian church on Christmas Day. They were carrying out massacres around Africa. They were attacking UN installations. So everyone who had to know in Africa about Boko Haram knew about it. And I think by us not designating it a foreign terrorist organization, if anything, it was being perceived in Africa as a sign of weakness rather than somehow a sign of diplomacy.
All right, Congressman, I want you to stick around. There's other issues I want to discuss with you, including More about Hillary Clinton. He's being criticized, as you know, by a lot of your fellow Republicans when it comes to what happened in Benghazi. We're going to talk about that a lot more when we come back. The Republicans are pushing ahead with a select committee investigation of the deadly attacks in Benghazi, Libya. They're keeping up their criticism of the then Secretary of State Hillary Clinton over her response to the tragedy. Let's pick up our conversation with Republican Congressman Peter King. He's a member of the House Intelligence Committee. Congressman, the former President Bill Clinton strongly defending his wife, saying she did what she did about Benghazi, and she was right. She impaneled a committee to investigate. Listen to Bill Clinton.
They looked into what was wrong. They gave 29 recommendations. She took them and started implementing them. And they established the fact that whether it was right or wrong in the past, secretaries of state never were involved directly in these security decisions.
So he and a lot of other supporters of Hillary Clinton suggesting what Republicans are doing in the House side largely political. Here's the question to you. You're a member of the House Intelligence Committee. Your committee, under Mike Rogers, the chairman, Dutch Ruppersberger, the ranking Democrat, you had extensive hearings. You looked into Benghazi. What do you need to know now that you and your Intelligence Committee members don't already know?
Well, first of all, I think everything has to be connected. Various committees held various hearings, and there was always a disconnect between the military and the intelligence and State Department. But having said that, to me, there's major questions here as to why more action was not taken to provide the security beforehand, and also when was this decision made, and why was it made in the immediate aftermath of the attacks to say that it was caused by a video, when nothing on the ground was saying that, when as Michael Morello was the #2 person in the CIA, said no one in the CIA was saying that the video was the cause of the attack in Benghazi. And, you know, the issue of the talking points, it's not just a question of talking points. It's that you saw the State Department, people in the CIA, people in the White House coming up with appears to be, I believe, a cover story after the fact. And I think Americans deserve more than that. Certainly the families of those who were murdered deserve more than that. But I think to make it a personal attack on Hillary Clinton is wrong. I think that when you do have a bureaucracy such as the State Department, not everything makes it to the top. I think we should see how far it went, and if it didn't go to Secretary Clinton, then as President Clinton said, reforms should be made. And listen, every administration has had failures as far as security, unfortunately, going back to 1983 in Beirut, you know, with the Reagan administration. But having said that, it was the fact that in the immediate aftermath, there seemed to be such a political cover put on it. And I don't think just for the campaign, but I think also in keeping up with the Obama narrative that al-Qaeda had been defeated, that we could go back to a pre-9/11 state and security state, as opposed to, you know, the measures that were imposed after 9/11. So I think that, again, it's a larger picture of how either politics or the intention to create a narrative that was not based on fact really impacted our policy in Libya. Also, that could tie in with Boko Haram, in that the Obama administration, at least the State Department, didn't want to acknowledge that in many ways Al-Qaeda was metastasizing and morphing and was in some ways more dangerous than before 9/11.
You were referring in Beirut back in the early 80s when terrorists blew up the U.S. Marine barracks outside of Beirut, killing more than 200 U.S. military personnel. Also blew up the U.S. Embassy and killing dozens of people inside the U.S. Embassy, including some high-ranking U.S. intelligence officials and diplomats at the same time. And as you correctly point out, that was during the Reagan administration. Quickly on today's Wall Street Journal report suggesting Iran is recruiting Afghan refugees to go to Syria to fight in support of the Bashar al-Assad regime, offering them $500 a month. What do you make of that?
Yeah, I have not been able to confirm that. I have not heard that. I wouldn't be surprised. First of all, we know Iran is involved in trying to prop up Assad in Syria. He is clearly an ally of theirs. And I wouldn't be surprised if there is some training that, you know, when they say thousands, that seems like a big number, only because I have not heard it, and I've been trying to track it down today since that story appeared. It may well be. There's no doubt Iran is behind Syria and is taking strong measures to support, you know, the Syrian regime, just as the al-Qaeda affiliates are working with the rebels. But as far as being able to confirm that there's actually foreign fighters coming from Afghanistan, being trained in Iran and being sent into Syria, I have not been able to confirm that. I wouldn't be surprised if there was some amount, but when they say thousands, that causes me to doubt that. But again, we're still trying to get to the bottom of that.
We're out of time, but one quick political question. Are you thinking of running for the Republican presidential nomination in 2016?
Yeah, I'm certainly looking at it. I'll be back in New Hampshire on June 21st, and when I saw Hillary Clinton yesterday, I told her to get ready.
Get ready. You think it's possible you could win that Republican nomination? She would get the Democratic nomination, and I would be moderating debates, presumably, between you and Hillary Clinton. Is that what you're saying?
It would be a good show. It really would. No, seriously. I'm looking at this because I see people like Rand Paul and Ted Cruz, and to me, I don't want the Republican Party going in that direction. Whether it's me or someone else, I want to do all that I can to make sure that what I call the realistic foreign policy wing and national security wing of the Republican Party does not give in to the isolationists, and I don't want to go back to the 1930s and the days of Charles Lindbergh.
Strong words from Peter King. All right, so you're seriously considering it. We'll see what happens. And if you do get the Republican nomination, Hillary Clinton gets a Democratic nomination, I'm ready to volunteer a moderated debate between the two of you.
Hey, Wolf, you got it.
Let's see if that happens. All right, thanks very much. Other political news we're following in Idaho.